Why does Iran never seem to surrender? For decades, Iran has faced pressure, sanctions, isolation, wars, threat, economic crisis, military strikes, political unrest. And yet, again and again, Iran doesn't collapse in the way many outside expected. But to be precious, the phrase Iran never surrenders is not completely accurate. Iran can negotiate, they can pause, they can make partial deals, they can retreat tactically. Iran can accept ceasefires, but Iran very badly designed for one thing: unconditional surrender. Because for Islamic Republic, surrender is not just a foreign policy decision, it's an attack on the entire system, on the ideology, on the revolutionary guides, on the economic of sanctions, on its political legitimacy, and on the idea that the regime exists to resist foreign domination. So Iran's usual strategy is not always to win quickly, it is to survive, to race for the cost for the enemies, to absorb the first shock, to protect the core of the regime, and then negotiate from the position of country that is still standing. To understand this, we need to go deep, not just into modern politics, not just into oil, not just into religion. We need to understand history, geography, ideology, war, and the way the Iranian state is built. Iran sees itself as a civilization that had survived for thousands of years, long before the modern United States existed, long before most modern states in Middle East existed. Persia was already one of the greatest powers of the ancient world. The Persian Empire controlled enormous territories. It controlled East and West. It built roads. It organized administration. It ruled over many people, languages, and cultures. And even when the empire fell, Persian identity survived. This matters because countries that see themselves as young states often think in decades, but civilization think in centuries. Iran has been invaded, occupied, pressured, humiliated, and reshared many times. Greek came, Arabs came, Mongols came, foreign empires came, but Persian identity remained. The language remained, the culture remained, the memory remained. This created a deep historical instinct. Outside pressure may be painful, but it is not new. Iran has seen pressure before, and Iran has survived pressure before. That is the first layer. The second layer is religion. Modern Iran is shaped by Shia Islam. This became especially important during the Safavid period, when 12 Shias became central to Persian state identity. This separated Iran from many of its Sunni neighbors. It created distinct religions and political identity. Over time, Shia political culture developed powerful themes: suffering, martyrdom, resistance, injustice. These ideas later became extremely important after the 1979 Islamic Revolution. But the roots are much older. Then came the modern age. And the modern age, one thing changed Iran forever: oil. Oil gave Iran enormous strategic value, but it also attached foreign power. Britain became deeply involved. Foreign companies controlled major parts of oil economy. Many Iranians believed their own country was being used. Iran had the oil, but outsiders received too much of the benefit. This feeling did not appear overnight. It grew slowly, and when came one of the most important moments in modern Iranian history. Prime Minister Mohammad Mossadegh wanted to nationalize Iranian oil. For many Iranians, this was not just an economic issue. It was about dignity. It was about sovereignty. It was about control over the country's own resources. But Mossadegh's move created a major conflict with foreign powers. Eventually, he has removed in a coup supported by outside intelligence. For the West, this was Cold War strategy. For many Iranians, it became something much deeper, proof that the foreign powers would interfere in Iran whenever Iran tried to control its own future. This memory never disappeared. It became part of Iranian political DNA, and later the Islamic Revolution would use 1953 again and again as a proof of idea the West cannot be trusted. Then came the Shah Mohammad Reza. Tried to modernize Iran quickly. He pushed reforms. Education expanded. Infrastructure grew. Women gained more rights. The country became more connected to the West. But modernization from above created tension. Some people benefited, others felt left behind. Many religious groups felt Iran was losing its identity. Many political groups felt the Shah ruled like an authorization ruler backed by the United States. There was modernization, but there was not enough political freedom. There was growth, but also inequality. There was westernization, but also humiliation for those who saw it as a foreign domination. By the late 1970s, anger exploded. In 1979, the Iranian Revolution overthrew the Shah. Ayatollah Khamenei returned, the monarchy collapsed, and the Islamic Republic was born. There is where modern Iran becomes very different. The new regime did not just claim to be government, it claimed to be a revolution. It claimed to defend independence. It claimed to resist imperialism. It claimed to protect Islam, to stand against foreign domination. That is why surrender is so difficult for this system. If a normal state compromises, it may be seen as diplomacy. But if the Islamic Republic appears to surrender, it damages the story. It tells about itself. The regime says, we are here because we resigned foreign control. We are here because we protected Iran's independence. We are here because we refuse to kneel. So if it kneels, what is left? That is why pressure often doesn't produce the response outside expect. Then came the hostage crisis. After the revolution, Iranian students stormed the United States Embassy in Tehran. Dozens of Americans were held hostage for more than 400 days. In the United States, this became a national humiliation. In revolutionary Iran, many supported saw it differently. They saw it as a revenge for 1953. They saw it as a rejection of American influence. They saw it as a proof that the revolution would not be controlled from the outside. This event poisoned relations between Iran and the United States for decades, and soon later, Iran faced an even greater shock for Iran-Iraq war. In 1980, Saddam Hussein's Iraq invaded Iran. Many expected Iran to collapse quickly. The country had just gone through a revolution. Its army was weakened. Its political system was unstable. But Iran did not collapse. Instead, the war became one of the longest and bloodiest conflicts in the modern Middle East. It lasted nearly 8 years. Cities were bombed, missiles hit civilian areas, chemical weapons were used. Hundreds of thousands died. Young volunteers went to the front. Families lost sons. Entire generations were shaped by war. For Iran, this became one more than a military conflict. It became a national trauma, a national lesson. The lesson was simple. Iran may be isolated, may be weaker, may be under attack, but Iran can survive. The war taught the regime how to mobilize society, how to use sacrifice as a political language, how to survive sanctions, how to fight with limited resources, how to pain into legitimacy. This is one reason Iran's leaders often think Definitely from Western governments. Western governments often ask, what is the cost? Iran's revolution system often asks, can the regime survive the cost? That is not the same question. Now we need to understand the structure of power. Iran is not a simple dictatorship where one man can control everything. It is more complicated. There is a president, there is a parliament, there are elections, but above them stands the supreme leader. The supreme leader has enormous power over military, judiciary, state media, and key institutions. Then there is a guardian council. It can block candidates, it can shape election, it can limit who is allowed to complete. So elections exist, but they operate inside the limits of the system. Then there is an Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, the IRGC. This is one of the most important institutions in modern Iran. It was created to protect the revolution, but over time it became much more than a military force. It became a political actor, an economic actor, a security actor, a religional actor. The IRGC controls key military capabilities, missiles, drone, external networks, parts of internal security, and large economic interests. This matters because surrender would not only threaten politicians, it would threaten the IRGC's role, its power, its resources, mission, and identity. So even if some politicians wanted a major compromise, the system has powerful institutions that benefit from resistance. Sanctions also created a strange economy. Normally, sanctions are designed to weaken a country, and sanctions did hurt Iran badly. Inflation rose, investments suffered, ordinary people paid the price, but sanctions also created networks of survival. Smuggling, shadow trade, informal finance, front compromise, alternative route, and in that economy, some powerful groups learned how to survive, some even learned how to profit. That is important, because once the system adapts to sanctions, sanctions alone may not force surrender. They create pain, but they also create new interests. Groups that I know how to operate under pressure become more powerful. The regime becomes less efficient, but more hardened. Then there is a geography. Look at Iran on a map. It is large, it is mountainous, it has deserts, it has difficult terrain. It sits between Central Asia and Caucasus, the Persian Gulf and Arab world, and South Asia. It's not an easy country to invade. It's not an easy country to occupy. And it controls access near one of the most important waterways on Earth, the Strait of Hormuz. A huge portion of global oil trade passes through his narrow area. If tension rises there, the world pays attention. Oil markets react, governments react, navies react. These give Iranian leverage, not unlimited power, but leverage. Iran knows that even if it cannot defeat a stronger enemy directly, it can make conflict expensive. This is central to Iranian strategy. Iran does not need to match the United States ship for ship. It doesn't need to match Israel plane for plane. Instead, it built tools for asymmetric pressure. Missiles, drones, fast boats, mines, proxy networks, cyber capabilities, regional allies. The strategy is not we can beat everyone in a conventional war. The strategy is we can make the cost of attacking us very high. This is why Iran built influence through regional networks. In Lebanon, Iraq, Syria, Yemen, Gaza. The network is often called the axis of resistance. Supporters see it as a defense against Israel and the United States. Critics see it as a destabilization proxy warfare. But from Iran's perspective, the logic is clear. If conflict stays far from Iran's border, Iran is safer. If enemies must worry about multiple fronts, Iran has leverage. If Iran cannot dominate the region conventionally, it can still complicate the region strategically. There is not the strategy of a country trying to win quickly. It is the strategy of the country trying not to lose. Now we can see the nuclear issue. Iran has long insisted that its nuclear program is peaceful, but many Western governments and regional rivals fear Iran wants the ability to build nuclear weapons. This created decades of sanctions, negotiations, inspections, crises, and deals. The nuclear program became more than a technical issue. For Iran, it became a symbol of sovereignty. The right to develop advanced technology, the right to be threatened as a second-class nation. For opponents, it became a security threat. The fear that Iran could become a nuclear-armed power, this disagreement created a cycle. Pressure, negotiations, partial agreement, collapse of trust, more pressure, more escalation. The 2015 nuclear deal temporarily reduced tensions, but after the United States withdrew from the deal in 2018, pressure returned. Iran then gradually moved further away from some limits. Trust collapsed again. And once trust collapses, every side assumes the worst. There is one of the most dangerous patterns of Iran politics. Iran often sees pressure as a proof that resistance is necessary. Its enemies often see resistance as proof that pressure must increase. Both sides reinforce each other. Now, let's look at society. The Iranian regime is not as popular as it wants to appear. There have been minor protests, economic anger, social frustration, demands for women's rights, demands for political freedom, generational change. Many young Iranians do not think like the revolutionary generation of '79. Many are more secular, more connected to the outside world, more tired of restrictions, more frustrated by corruption and inflation. There is a serious weakness for the regime, but weakness doesn't automatically mean collapse. That is a common mistake people often think. If society is unhappy, the regime will fail. But regimes did not fail only because people are unhappy. They fall when the elite splits, when security forces stop obeying, when the economy stops functioning completely, when the opposition can organize, when fear breaks, when an alternative power center appears. Iran has unrest, but it also has strong tools of control. Security services, courts, the IRGC, pages networks, internet restrictions, state media, and a political system designed to survive crisis. This is why Iran can be socially weak, but institutionally hard. This is the key distinction. The regime may lose legitimacy, but still keep power. The state may be unpopular, but still be difficult to break. And when outside pressure increases, another effect can happen. Even people who dislike the regime may not want foreign bombs, invasion, or national collapse. This is very important. Opposition for the regime doesn't always mean support for foreign pressure. Many Iranians can hate the government and still reject foreign intervention, because national identity is separate from regime loyalty. There is why outside pressure sometimes backfires. It can give the regime a chance to say, look, the country is under attack. Now is not the time for division. Now resistance is survival. This doesn't make the regime loved, but it can help the regime survive. So, why does Iran never break? Because it's not held together by one factor. It's held together by many. Civilizational identity, Shia political culture, historical memory, the trauma of foreign intervention, the 1953 coup, the 1979 revolution, the Iran-Iraq war, the power of the supreme leader, the IRGC, sanctions network, geography, oil and gas resources, the Strait of Hormuz, missiles and drones, regional proxies, and the belief that the surrender would destroy the system from within. But Iran's strength should not be exaggerated. Iran is not invincible. Its economy is under strain. Its society is frustrated. Its politics are rigid. Its young generation is different. Its regional network has been hit repeatedly. Its air force is old. Its infrastructure is vulnerable. Its sanctions economy is costly. Legitimacy is weaker than before. So the real answer is not Iran is too strong to break. The real answer is Iran is built to endure pain longer than many outsiders expect. That is different. Iran can suffer, Iran can lose assets, can face crisis, can be pressured, but unconditional surrender would threaten the entire revolutionary system. So the regime usually chooses another path. Absorb the shock, raise the cost, wait, adapt, negotiate later. Survive. This is why predictions about Iran often fail. Analysts look at the inflation and expect collapse. They look at the protest and expect collapse. Look at the sanctions and expect collapse. They look at military pressure and expect collapse. But Iran's system doesn't measure survival the same way. It doesn't need prosperity to survive. It doesn't need popularity to survive. It doesn't need normal relations with world to survive. It needs the core institution to remain loyal. It needs enough money to function, and it needs enough fear to control unrest, enough ideology to justify sacrifice, and needs enough leverage to make enemies hesitate. This is why Iran is so difficult to force into surrender. Not because it's unstoppable, not because it is united, not because it is no weaknesses, not because the regime has turned survival into political system, a military strategy, an economic model, and a national story. Iran doesn't simply ask, how do we win? It often asks, how do we remain standing when the pressure ends? Again and again, that has been the pattern. Shock, pressure, pain, adapt. Survival, negotiation, another crisis, another cycle. So when people ask why Iran never breaks, the answer is not one thing. It is history, it is geography, it is ideology, it is memory, fear, state design, it is war experience, it is oil, sanctions, and revolutionary guards. It is the belief that surrender would be more dangerous for the regime than continued suffering. And that is what makes Iran so hard to understand. From the outside, surrender may look rational. From inside, the system surrender can look like suicide. And that is the difference. And until that difference is understood, Iran will keep surprising the world.